From the moment she appeared on screen, Suki delighted fans and baffled Avatar's creators. Her meteoric success blindsided them completely, and they still haven't figured out her character. Since 2005, Suki's journey has been a roller coaster of guesswork and improvisation, and even now, 2 decades later, with a new movie on the horizon, Suki remains an enigma, a delightful yet contradictory mess. I think it's high time that someone exposed the truth about this character, about her relationships, and finally answered the question, where is Suki? When the Kyoshi Warriors debuted way back in the show's 4th episode, they were intended to be mere footnotes in the saga, never to be seen again. These girls were literally designed to be an afterthought, a quick copy-paste job of unimportant side characters who wouldn't distract attention away from the main gang. But one of the warriors needed to stand out. The team needed a voice and a leader who could interact with Aang and his friends, so it was out of necessity that Suki's character was born. Suki was an instant hit. With the audience, yes, but more importantly, she became super popular with the show's artist and writer's room. And it's pretty obvious why. Suki's name literally translates to beloved in Japanese and bitch in Polish. Okay, so that was unrelated, but I had to share the trivia. No, they just loved Suki's interactions with Sokka and how her traditionally inspired clothing paid homage to Japanese aesthetics. And according to Avatar's creators, Break simply had an affinity for strong female characters, so it was, quote, only natural that Suki earned her way into the main stable of Team Avatar. But there it is, the prevailing conundrum. Does Suki truly belong to Team Avatar? Like, put aside all your preconceived notions and consider this carefully. Is she genuinely a member of the legendary gang, the close-knit group of friends who saved the world? My hot take is that she obviously isn't, and if you disagree with me, then I respectfully think you might be simping just a little bit. In today's video, I'll explain the multitude of reasons why Suki doesn't and never has qualified for a gang membership pass. And if you watch until the end, then I'll also reveal the canon whereabouts and the ultimate fate of the Kyoshi Warriors leader. Like with most hot takes, today's story starts on Twitter. A few weeks ago, we got our first glimpse at Avatar Studios' next project, a leaked image from their upcoming animated movie that's slated for an October 10th, 2025 theatrical release. This exclusive poster was intended for investors' eyes only, but once it leaked, it shed light on several interesting details. First off, when Nick announced the film last year, they vaguely stated that it would be focusing
on Avatar Aang and his friends.
Aang and his friends, huh? I mean, yeah, the poster absolutely reinforces that, featuring Toph, Sokka, Aang, Katara, and Zuko in action, seemingly defending an early Republic city. But soon, a question began echoing around the fandom. Where's Suki? After all, didn't she become a core part of Team Avatar around the finale? Sokka's declaration of Team Avatar is back included fan and sword, heavily hinting at her inclusion. So why isn't she here? And in fact, why is Suki often excluded from team group shots, with another famous snub being her absence from the Old Friends poster? Some, like my fellow Avatar YouTuber Airspeed Prime, chalk it up to an oversight. He defended Suki's gang membership on Twitter, saying that Sokka's rallying cry settles it, simple as. Yet, when I challenged him to name just 2 meaningful interactions that Suki had ever had with Aang, or even just a single conversation with Katara, who's her presumed sister-in-law, Airspeed had to admit that Suki's dynamics with the wider team could use more development. And my take? Well, I think that while Suki's bond with Sokka is undeniable, and while her fighting skills definitely come in handy, she was never a cornerstone member of Aang's gang. I mean, it took until 2021's Suki Alone comic, released 13 years after the show ended, that she even received a proper backstory. Suki was literally and physically dragged into the finale by Sokka. Is that really the end-all be-all metric we're going with here? I rewatched the entire show and painstakingly tallied up every single interaction Suki had with another character, and I'm gonna share those findings, but first I want you to try very hard to recall your second favorite Toph and Suki moment. Why the second favorite? Well, because the drowning scene is the obvious first choice. Now back to Suki and her unwillingness to talk to anyone who's not named Sokka. By my count, Suki only has 5 interactions with Toph in the entire series.
You can go ahead and let me drown now.
There's an awful lot of fire in that general direction. Suki, we'll all understand if you break up with him over this.
The comet actually looks beautiful. Too bad the Fire Lord's about to use it to destroy the world. Leave the nicknames to us, honey.
And as this graph illustrates, it's not much better for anyone else either, with Sokka being the only exception. One especially revealing moment that I discovered was in the Serpent's Pass episode. When the mother they're traveling with suddenly goes into labor, Katara takes charge of the situation and assigns everyone in various tasks. This includes Suki, who Katara invites inside to help her deliver the baby. What's funny is that in every corresponding scene within the tent, from the pushing and Sokka fainting to the naming of the baby, Suki is nowhere to be found, and she remains MIA even when everyone else eventually goes inside to greet the baby.
It's so squishy looking.
Did the animators simply forget that the Kyoshi warrior was supposed to be on labor nurse duty? Or maybe Katara sent her away with a new menial assignment? It's curious to say the least. At this point, I must include a trigger warning for all the diehard defenders out there. Please be advised, Suki slander is coming. This may sound blunt, but it's the truth. Suki started off as and continues to be an afterthought. Let me pose a genuine question. What color are Suki's eyes? Take a moment. If you answered either bright blue or piercing green, then you are correct. And this isn't some ambiguous hazel eyes, depends on the lighting situation. No, they just straight up forgot Suki's eye color in the comics for over 8 years. Strike once shared their feedback notes from the initial comic artist's sketches. They were quite meticulous with critiques about everything, ranging from the visibility of Aang's arrows to the pointiness of Zuko's nose. But it would seem that Suki's depiction didn't receive nearly as much scrutiny. But okay, new observation. Sokka only ever thinks about Suki when she's right in front of him. If you're a big Sokka shipper, then you might want to cover your ears. Consider this, Sokka and Suki met in season 1, spending a single day together before parting ways with a kiss on the cheek. Then a few weeks later, Sokka spent like a month trying to get with Princess Yue, and they actually shared a kiss, like a real one, at least twice before Yue's sacrifice. Jump forward to the Serpent's Pass, where Sokka and Suki spend another 24 hours together, this time though ending with a proper makeout session before separating again. So thumbs up there. But now here's where Sokka gets kinda flaky. A few weeks later, after the whole Dai Li arc, this happens.
Your Majesty, there are 3 female warriors here to see you. They're from the island of Kyoshi.
That's Suki!
So right before the gang splits up, Sokka learns that the Kyoshi warriors are also at the palace. He thinks that Suki is right there, just on the other side of this building, yet despite that, Sokka essentially says, yep, they're cool, but I'ma still head out. Seriously? He's not even gonna go say hi? His girl just showed up, they're in the same building. If Sokka had decided to at least give Suki a quick hug before leaving to see his dad, then he would have realized that it was actually Azula in disguise, and Ba Sing Se probably wouldn't have fallen. Hashtag Sokka killed Aang. So there's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 though comes right after they discover that the Kyoshi warriors are fakes. Sokka, the big brain idea man, had to have realized that the Kyoshi warriors being body swapped meant that Suki definitely got captured, or lightninged by Azula, yet he doesn't seem concerned about that at all. Now of course this is war and bad stuff happens, and in fact circumstances were especially dire since they had basically just lost the war due to their failure, so maybe there were bigger things at stake, but still, the next time Suki gets mentioned is from Azula's taunting.
She was convinced you were going to come rescue her. Of course, you never came, and she gave up on you.
And you know what? Azula's right. Suki was missing for months, and did anyone even notice or care? Like imagine that Toph got captured, or Katara. Team Avatar would have been in shambles until they were rescued. But with Suki, it'll probably work itself out. And it did! Sokka accidentally found her in prison and rescued her out of convenience, when his actual mission was, once again, to find his father. In the recent Suki Alone comic, the one where they retroactively gave her a backstory, we also finally learned everything that went down with Suki while she was MIA. After being betrayed by a fellow prisoner and spending 2 weeks in solitary confinement, she understandably starts to break down. But then, Avatar Kyoshi's spirit appears to Suki and reassures her that she hasn't been abandoned by her friends and that she's not alone. Kyoshi disappears and the comic closes with this epic shot of Sokka and Zuko approaching the prison. So now we have 2 ways of interpreting this ending. Option A, is this revisionist history, or option B, is Kyoshi just lying? Because Sokka absolutely did not know that Suki was in there. She wasn't even remotely on his mind. Running into Suki and then freeing her was a complete coincidence. A happy coincidence, but a coincidence nonetheless. We in the Avatar community have been simping for Suki. A simp is a person who gives way too much energy to someone else who just isn't matching their level. Their amounts of mutual thought and consideration are never balanced, and thus far in the franchise, our devotion to Suki has not been reciprocated. Which brings me to my final point. What happens to Suki after the show, and where does she end up in her adult years and during the era of Korra? While it brings me no joy to kick the Sokka chippers while they're down, you guys are here for the truth. So, yeah, they definitely broke up, and I can prove it. Although Suki and Sokka finally get a chance to act more coupley in the comics, their relationship never got nearly as much development as the others did, like Mei and Zuko's or Katara and Aang's. For instance, while Mako, is that really what y'all went with? Whatever. While Mako eventually crumbles under the pressure of Zuko's massive responsibility to restructure the post-war Fire Nation, Sokka and Suki's interactions remain somewhat shallow, still being characterized by just hard-eyed infatuation when the two unexpectedly cross paths. And then there's Katang. That ship saw waves of progress. It started off being super cringe and over the top before eventually maturing into a powerful depiction of cross-cultural love. Even though Katara and Aang's perspectives sometimes clash, they're consistent, and open communication ultimately cultivates shared wisdom and personal growth for both characters. In contrast, the deepest we get from Sokka's relationship consists mostly of Sokka's near constant adoration of everything Suki does, which isn't inherently a bad thing, of course. We stand a conflict-free, positive, and healthy relationship, but it leaves me at least wanting more depth, more substance, and just more there. The Kyoshi warriors' post-war roles were a bit, I'll say, limiting. They all became bodyguards for Fire Lord Zuko in the first comic, and they keep that position until the last one. This really stunted their character growth, especially for Suki and Ty Lee, who were mostly mitigated to just standing around the Fire Nation Palace, ready to jump in and start chi blocking whenever a fight started brewing. Interestingly though, the setup did end up fostering a deeper bond between Suki and Zuko, with Suki becoming something akin to the Fire Lord's most trusted advisor. The final Avatar comic concludes 2 years after the war, with Sokka, Suki, Aang, and Katara all agreeing to settle down in the fledgling Republic City. Katara and Aang spent those 2 years traveling together, working through numerous issues as they popped up across the four nations. This not only strengthened their bond and their resolve to unify the world, but it also brought their relationship to a commendably great point. On the contrary, Suki and Sokka did not have nearly as much quality time together. While Suki served as a bodyguard in the Fire Nation, Sokka alternated between helping Zuko find his mother, hanging out with Toph at her new metal bending school, and spending several months with family in the Southern Water Tribe. So them both deciding to stay in Republic City is really this couple's first substantial amount of shared time together since they started dating. But they finally have that time now, so we can assume they lived happily ever after, right? Wrong. There is actually one more mention of Suki following this point, one last final update to her whereabouts, and it occurs in this book, Legacy. This canon scrapbook, filled with letters and informative tidbits, serves as an in-universe document that we can access in real life. Basically, imagine that at 37 years old, Avatar Aang created this exact book as a gift for his 5-year-old son Tenzin, and that us fans just have the privilege of getting to read it too. In the book, Aang dedicates 2 pages to describing the members of Team Avatar, and very interestingly, Suki does not make the cut yet again. Aang also got some of his friends to write letters to Tenzin. Naturally, Katara's letter is just so incredibly touching. She writes about how she met and ended up falling in love with Aang, and she also shares how very proud they both already are of their 3 children. Toph's letter also illustrates how she met the Avatar, but it has a much lighter tone. There's no letter from Zuko, likely due to the geographical distance between him and the Fire Nation and Aang's family in Republic City. I guess when compiling the scrapbook, Aang only pulled in favors from his friends who lived locally. The last letter is from Uncle Sokka. He retells his role in ending the war, but amusingly embellishes quite a lot, depicting the picture of him single-handedly saving the day. However, the real intrigue lies in the final part of his letter. Sokka writes,
"Well, okay, fine. Toph just reminded me that it was actually Suki who saved us in the end by crashing another airship into ours and giving us a surface to land upon. But I still stand by the fact that the entire war would have been lost were it not for my ingenuity."
Oh, wait, stop. Say that again.
"Well, okay, fine. Toph just reminded me that it was actually Suki who saved us in the end. Toph just reminded me that it was actually Suki who saved us in the end by crashing another airship into ours."
Did you catch that? Sokka said that Toph just reminded him, like she did it just then while he was in the middle of writing the letter. That means that Toph is physically next to Sokka in this moment. Like they're in the same room. But where's Suki? Well, if she was in Republic City, then she likely would have contributed a letter too, so we can scratch that out. Additionally, Sokka never mentions having a wife or kids or anything else, so actually, in fact, the only reason he brought up Suki at all was because Toph reminded him to. So one last time, and you know what? Let's say it together. Where is Suki? Fortunately, Aang provides the answer just a few pages later. Suki is back home on Kyoshi Island. In his scrapbook, Aang includes a page covering the Kyoshi warriors. He describes them to Tenzin as a fierce group of female fighters who use fans as weapons and adorn themselves in the styles of Kyoshi. Aang goes on to say that during their youth, the Kyoshi warriors were led by Suki and that Uncle Sokka was smitten. Notice the use of the past tense, was smitten, and that she is an aunt or Aunt Suki. Suki, just Suki. Furthermore, Aang includes a current photo of the Kyoshi Warrior lineup, and he adds additional details about Ty Lee and Suki. Reminder, by the way, cameras have been invented at this point, so this is like an actual real photo. Suki's description mentions that she continues to lead the team, having been training since the tender age of 8. Aang comments that Suki had skills that Uncle Sokka could only dream of, and that they were an amazing team together. Were amazing. Past tense. Aang was 37 when he made this scrapbook for Tenzin, meaning that this photo and all these letters are from the year 124 AG. Based on the backdrop, we can tell that this photo was taken in the very same dojo on Kyoshi Island where Sokka and Suki first met. Just look at the pillar, with the diamond fixture and everything else, it's all identical. Suki clearly consumed the Kool-Aid and is currently completely committed to the cute and culty Kyoshi club. Ty Lee too for that matter. And I just want to point out really quickly that in the year 124 AG, Toph and Sokka were hanging out way more than I think anyone ever realized. Like, they're both in their late 30s in the same room together, helping each other write letters for Tenzin. And Toph's daughter Suyin was born 2 years after this in 126 AG. And no one knows who Su's father is, so yeah, feel free to do whatever you want with that information. Anyway, at the end of the comics, the key factor that motivated Suki's decision to stay in Republic City was so that she could continue teaching chi blocking to the non-bending police force. That was 22 years before the Kyoshi Warrior photo was taken, but still, we know from the Legend of Korra that Toph eventually assumed control over police training. By the time of Yakon's trial in 128 AG, so 4 years after the scrapbook, Toph was the chief of police, and metal bending had completely replaced chi blocking on the force. Let's keep in mind that Suki and Sokka first met when they were just 15, and the comics ended when they were 17. Essentially, we're talking about a high school romance here, and how many of those stand the test of time? Let's just do a quick Google search, and apparently 2% of high school sweethearts get married, while only 0.9% of them stay together. Admittedly, that's slightly higher than I expected, but still the odds aren't in their favor. One of the reasons we love Avatar is for the realism of these characters and the depth of their various interactions. Is it really realistic for all these characters to start families with their very first loves? Probably not, right? I mean, after all, Suki was literally the first girl around Sokka's age that he'd ever encountered, and she was always super committed to the ways of Kyoshi. It's a devotion that she obviously treasured very deeply for her entire life. And then Sokka was a born leader who was eventually elected chairman of the United Republic Council, aka the president of this new tech-savvy nation. Not only that, but we also know that later in life, Sokka returned home and became the chief of the Southern Water Tribe. That's to say, both Sokka and Suki found and fully embraced their true purposes. As Aang pointed out, they were an amazing team together, but it seems like they both moved on, and that's alright. They were still on good terms, and their incredible achievement of ending the war together remained in the limelight. Remember, it took a nudge, but Sokka did include her in his letter to baby Tenzin, and then 46 years later, Master Tenzin also made sure to commemorate Suki in his opening prologue.
When I was a boy, my father, Avatar Aang, told me the story of how he and his friends heroically ended the 100-Year War.
So for Tenzin and his kids, and all the generations that will learn from them, Suki will never be an afterthought, because she was always right there, front and center. If you want to learn the truth about Zuko and his secret canon ability to bend a rainbow fire, then watch this video next. I think you'll find it pretty spectacular. Wait, is that pronounced Suka or Sukka? Sucka D's nuts.